How do you pay for senior living? That's a really great question, right? Because if you've decided that it's time to start thinking seriously about moving into a senior living community, well, the next step in your mind is probably how are you going to pay for it? And that's what we're going to talk about on this show today. We've got a list of conventional and maybe some not so conventional ways to pay for assisted living, for independent living, and for memory care. Well, hey everybody, my name is Chris and you are watching Senior Living Live. This is a show that's designed for you. We're here to pull back the curtains on senior living and answer your burning questions so that you can make informed decisions and live the life that you want to live. As we've established in past episodes, which might I add, you can watch on demand whenever you want at seniorlivinglive.com. We always love to have a guest on the show with me to talk about some of these topics. So today, I want to introduce you to the fantastic Brooke Wall.
Well, hello.
How you doing?
I'm great.
Welcome today. We're so happy to have you here. So Brooke is a senior living counselor at the Arbor at Bridge Mill, one of our fantastic, our newest community. It's the one that just recently opened here in the Atlanta area. It's very beautiful.
It is. It's in Canton, Georgia, right up 575 off Sixes Road. And it's gorgeous on 15 acres, and we have cottages and independent apartments, assisted living, and memory care.
Yeah, it is. It's a really cool place. It's got some cool design. It's a little more modern in some cases, and so yeah, we love it. So, Brooke, if you could just tell me about your role in senior, like what do you do on a daily basis?
Sure. So, I get to help each person that comes in to really talk about what they're looking for most. Try to find out if they need to be in a more, or want to be in a more independent environment, or if they need some more support with their day-to-day living. And so I help people to kind of walk through what that process looks like. Not only where they need to be, but then once it's been determined, what added benefits they will need to move forward to make this happen, what steps are needed to be able to move into a community. So it is something that I get to walk through each aspect of it, kind of a hand-holding process, but give them the information that they need through the whole thing.
That's great. That's great. And so we were talking a little bit before the show, but how did you get into the senior living world? Like, this is...
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So I was very, very blessed. My great-grandparents were a huge part of my life. My sweet mama and Dodo. And from the time I could talk, I was always with my Dodo. I claimed him. I was one of 21 grandchildren, and he was mine. I didn't want to share him with anybody else. And I had the privilege of knowing him and my sweet mama until I was 16, 17 years old. And even after they passed, I knew I wanted to continue to honor them by taking care of other people like them. And I just felt like I'd learned so much from them. I wanted to do more. And so with that, I ended up going straight into child and family development with an emphasis on older adults, and right out of college went straight into an assisted living community as an activities director, and I loved it. And it's been where my passion has been, and so I have stayed in it. I took a minor break to have my kids, but knew I needed to be back in where my heart is.
Yeah, great. Well, we're so happy to have you at that community, and of course here today on Senior Living Live. So as we look at this list of the most common ways to pay for senior living, I think it's a super important topic because, frankly, senior living is expensive, right? And now I think that you get a lot for that amount of money that you spend, right? That rent typically includes food, of course, your apartment, a whole host of activities and things to keep your mind and body engaged. But it's still a lot of money. Right? I mean, do you get the sticker shock from people sometimes?
Absolutely. Everybody, if we are the first place that they come to, when they first hear about that, you can see their eyes do get wide. But as we talk through everything that's provided, that they're no longer having to worry about, they realize it's not as far off than what they're currently paying.
Mm-hmm.
But with this, they get peace of mind, they get community, they have engagement. They're able to have a higher quality of living because they're surrounded by other people and no longer isolated. There are just so many benefits that come from being in a community that they otherwise wouldn't have if they were by themselves.
Yeah.
But even especially from the financial aspect, when putting it all together and seeing what they're paying, it's normally not too far off from what they're currently doing.
Yeah, so that's really good to know. And we did talk about that a little bit in our episode. I forget which episode number it is, but the one that we talked about the cost of senior living. So if you look back a few episodes at seniorlivinglive.com, you will be able to see that, where we kind of go into that a little bit more. And actually, we have a cost calculator on our website that we should talk about. I know you use that a lot. You share that with people, right?
I do. So with that cost calculator, as I was mentioning, when people break it down and they can see the numbers side by side, they're able to realize that, oh, it's not just the monthly bills. It's not just the ones you expect that come up that are having to be paid. It's those other things, the major repairs that have to be worried about. It's even the seasonal maintenance of lawn care or what might need to be done with a roof. It's all of those things that come together when they realize they're not having to pay for it. One, they're not having to make the call and find somebody that can take care of it for them. Two, it's all covered. It just takes a lot of pressure off of them and gives them peace of mind when they can look and see, oh, every one of these things are now being covered. Using that calculator is very beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan is watching. He says that cost calculator is huge. Thank you, Jonathan. We'd like to see that. So and by the way, you can get to that cost calculator we don't have a link set up right now, but if you just head over to arborcompany.com and click resources, the cost calculator will be right on that page for you. And you just kind of fill it out online and it spits out some good information for you. So today, let's getting back to the topic that we're talking about today. Hopefully, we'll be able to give you some things to think about as it relates to this topic of how to pay for senior living. These are going to be things that you're, of course, going to want to think about, maybe talk about with your family, and maybe even meet with a financial advisor. And we were just talking about that a little bit before the show, that really that financial advisor, accountant, an elder law attorney, someone like that, those are great things to really consider. Those are great people to really consider talking about or talking to in this situation. Of course, talk to your family, talk to your children, but talk to someone who deals with this on a daily basis, right? Because your kids don't necessarily do that.
Right. Yeah. So seeking an expert is very beneficial because they know exactly how to help lay things out and how to best prepare for anything that's coming forward. Might be able to predict things that you wouldn't otherwise know, and so they can help to factor those numbers in for you and figure out if it's best to work from investments, to be able to possibly use equity to and invest and use the interest from that equity or anything like that. It's definitely best to speak to an expert.
Yeah. So Jonathan asks online in the comments, if for you, Brooke, have you found that stating the price first and then explaining the inclusions and benefits is most effective, or vice versa? So do you start with the price, or do you start with the
Jonathan, that's a great question. I often find it best to explain to people what it is that we offer first, because if they realize everything that's included and then hear the price, it's not so much of a shock. And if I've tried it in the reverse, I've done this for a number of years, and if people hear that number at the beginning, they don't hear anything else after that. So it's definitely best to kind of hear what's included. I do understand oftentimes people may just know, this is my budget, this is what I'm working with, what do you offer, what do you have? If people are forthcoming with that, it's much easier for us to have that conversation. But for people who don't have a clue and this is their first time, their first introduction into it, it's easier to hear the money on the end of it before doing it at the beginning.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get into it then. So we've got a list of a few things that, like we said, are conventional ways to pay for senior living and some unconventional, and so just kind of let's get right into it, I suppose. So I think the the obvious one is the easiest one is complete private pay. Use your savings, right?
Right.
So you got to think about, do you have a 401k? Do you have a pension? Any IRAs, your investment portfolios? Those are fantastic. That's why you have your savings, right?
Exactly.
And so is that, you see people using that a lot?
Yes, more often than not, they've been, especially pensions, people having those, knowing that they have those to rely on, and that gives them more of I know this is what's coming in every month, and so it's what they're able to live on, and they're not having to go even more from their savings aspect. But yes, because most senior industries are private pay, they have to utilize those first, or utilize those if their monthly income is over.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, which is why you really should talk to someone about it.
Absolutely.
And use those pensions because they typically go away at the time of your death, right?
Exactly.
And also be thankful if you have a pension that you actually do have one, because
yes.
Someone my
don't.
age or your age, right?
Right.
We don't we haven't really had the opportunity to have one of those. I do have a very small pension from a company that I worked for, so maybe when I retire I can go out for a modest dinner once a month or so. I think that's what I'll get. Okay, so I think that takes us to the next item we have here, which is an annuity. And full disclosure, we are not financial advisors here. We're just sort of listing out the things that we know that people use. And Brooke actually even told me before the show that a lot of times you're not even involved. You give advice to people, right? But
right.
you're not a financial advisor.
No,
dealing with their money.
I am often recommending to people to talk to their financial advisor to get the best information that they can, because we don't want to give inappropriate information, and only you yourself who has been investing and doing these things know what you have. And having a financial advisor, having an expert be able to break that down and share that information is going to be able to let you see and set up the best for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So and I think that really comes to play with things like an annuity, where I'm sure there's some shady companies out there that you probably don't want to mess with, but your trusted financial advisor can steer you in the right way. But essentially, an annuity is being able to kind of like sell your investments and your retirement portfolios to a company, and then they pay you a monthly value of that every month. And so you know that you've got a set income coming from that, so there's some peace of mind coming with that, and you can pay for senior living out of that. There are some things that it's not, if you are, if Medicaid is a situation that you're looking for, and we'll kind of get into Medicaid in a little bit. It's not, an annuity is not fully considered an asset by Medicaid, but it does count as a resource. So you want to talk to your financial advisor about that, because it can get kind of confusing as it relates to that. But so annuities are something that some people can use, and it's certainly worth taking a look at. The next one, and again this is a little more conventional, is your home equity. So if you own your home, great. If you don't have house payments anymore, that's even fantastic, because you've got all of that equity in your home. The easiest way to get that equity out is to sell your home. And even as you talk to the senior living community that you may be interested in or in your area, they will give you resources in your local area. I'm sure that there's realtors that you've worked with, and downsizing folks and movers and all sorts of resources like that, right? Yes,
and something I do want to point out when it comes to selling your home and having the equity in it, oftentimes when we're younger, if you don't take the money, the equity, and put it into another house, then there's that capital gains tax that has to be paid. But as with older adults, that's not a penalty that has to be paid. Okay. And so that's really beneficial to know. There's nothing being lost with the equity of having to put it into something else. And so again, utilizing an expert through a financial advisor to say, now that I have the equity, how do I best invest it to use that interest so that it doesn't go away? How can I maximize the money that we have? And so having that equity is a really beneficial thing.
Yeah, that's really great. I did not know that. So if and if you're watching in the comments, if you just learned something new like I did, tell us you learned something new. We'd love to hear that. So another option is a reverse mortgage. So that's particularly useful if you want to keep ownership of your home. You either want to keep it in your family, or a lot of times that comes into play with spouses, where if one spouse needs to move to assisted living or memory care and the other one's going to stay in the home, the reverse mortgage, if you own your home, pays you back from that, right?
Yes, and let me tell you that reverse mortgages now are very different than they were 10 years ago. So when people would hear reverse mortgage 10 years ago, they
kind of got scared.
Yes, it was very scary, and it actually was, it was not the benefit that it is now. So reverse mortgages can be a huge help to people moving forward, especially in the situation of someone is wanting to keep their house and needs to have that extra income or extra money to help for their loved one to be in an assisted living or memory care. So those are a great thing to look into with a banker.
Okay, that's fantastic too. Another one that we talked about today is a bridge loan. So that's a short-term loan, just gives you a little bit of time if you need to move quickly, right?
Yes. So bridge loans are another great thing for somebody who's wanting to move into a community, but they don't want to have to wait for their house to sell. And so there's actually a really great company out there called Elder Life. And so if you go to Elder Life Financial, they can help walk through that. They can provide the loan at a very nominal interest rate. They can do it very quickly. So if it's, especially if it's something that somebody's needing immediate care, it's amazing the help that they can provide. And they can do 6 months, they can do 12 months, and there isn't an early payment penalty coming back. So, I mean, fabulous benefits to be able to utilize bridge loans if a quick decision needs to be made.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good one too. Again, when you need those quick decisions, it's you don't have to worry about finding a realtor and everything right away. You've got a little bit of time to work on it. And then finally, under the home side of it is rent. If you may choose to rent your home to a family member or to someone else, and that's a great way to get income as well. There's also some tax benefits, of course, from renting.
Right.
So something to keep in mind. Sharon in the comments asked about insurance, long-term care insurance. Well, have we got news for you, Sharon? That's the next topic on our list, which is long-term care insurance. So a lot of people have it. It's something that you would have probably needed to buy into earlier. And the way long-term care insurance works, it's very dependent on the policy that you have.
Yes.
What's allowed, and how your policy may have changed over time, because sometimes they've added addendums and things, right?
Yes. So one thing I have learned over the years is every single policy is different. Every one of them is customizable. So it's important to know what's in the policy. Some have addendums to allow for in-home care. That is great even in a community to just have that added support if necessary to help with maybe medication management or standby assistance in the shower, those while still in an independent living community without having to go to assisted. So those are fantastic. Just the long-term care, it's important to pay attention. Is it something that is indefinite, or is there a term on it? Because again, all of them are going to be different. Some are for $250,000 over 4 years. Some are a certain per diem a day for a certain period of time. So checking those out, and a senior care advisor can always help call the insurance company with you to explain the type of community that they're in. That way there isn't anything lost in translation, because as Chris was saying, with policies that were written 20, 30 years ago, the type of assisted living and memory care we have now is different than what was then.
Yeah,
oftentimes it was just
years?
It was just skilled nursing, and so thankfully the policies are following along with what is provided now. So again, just really helpful to look at those.
Well, and it's really in their best interest, because
Absolutely.
assisted living particularly is way cheaper than skilled nursing.
Yes.
And so that's a big component for them to be able to save money and make those policies last longer. But essentially, if you have long-term care insurance, you probably want to discuss that with your agency or your broker or whoever got you that insurance, and then get that senior living senior living community involved to prove you're qualified. So
Right.
a lot of times, the insurance policy will say that in order for you to qualify to be able to use that money, you need at least 2 areas of ADLs, or activities of daily living, included, or there's got to be some need based there. So it could also at that point be a conversation with your doctor as well, because you may have to have doctor's orders, to say that yes, you need help with medication reminders or with bathing and things like that. So again, kind of got to get everybody on your team together to figure these out, because the insurance companies may not want to pay you, and you've got to figure out how to get the money that's rightfully yours.
Yes, and that's where a community can be very beneficial in helping with that communication too. So the insurance companies would ask what services are being provided. We would be able to share that and let them know, yes, these 2 4 activities of daily living are being provided every day to this particular resident to maximize getting that benefit, because quite honestly, if you've been paying into that, you should be able to get the benefit of it.
Yeah. So that takes us to the next item, and I think it's actually really related, even though you may not think of it. This is kind of more on the unconventional side of how to pay for senior living, but that's life insurance. A lot of people have life insurance, and so you can actually use life insurance to pay for senior living. So you want to ask your agent about it again. Now, different life insurance companies or policies call it different things. They may call it cashing out your policy. They may call it accelerated living benefits, things like that. But essentially what they do is they kind of buy your policy back from you, and that may be for 50 to 75% of its value or so. But that gives you money that you could then use to pay for your long-term care, independent living, assisted living, or memory care. Totally depends on the company, but more and more are doing it these days. And there's also some third-party companies that can help you with that. So even if your life insurance company does not provide that as a service, there are companies like, what was the one that you just mentioned?
Well, Elder Life.
They also do that, right?
I know that they help with the bridge loans. They can help with VA benefit information. They help walk people through the financial aspect if needed.
Okay. So they may be able to help with that too. There's another company we've worked with called Life Care Funding. They're another option, and it's a third party that essentially just buys your life insurance from you. So at the point of your death, they become the beneficiary of that, but they're paying you out ahead of time. So that's how that works. But it's it's an unconventional way, but it could be a good way to get that. So that takes us to the kind of the big one, and I guess this is a little more conventional probably, but there's the government benefits, right? So there's all sorts of things that we've got from the government. Now the big piece, that's the big question that we get from people is, does Medicare cover senior living?
Unfortunately, no.
No.
They do not.
There you go. So there's your answer, folks. Medicare does not cover senior living costs. However, some states offer Medicaid programs that cover senior living. Totally varies by state. I think right now it's about 40 states or so that have Medicaid programs that they work with that. So you want to check with your state. And you also want to make sure that you meet whatever qualifications they have in terms of your income and assets and things like that. That's really where you want to bring in that financial advisor, because there's times when if you may have too many assets, you don't qualify, but there's things that you can do with your assets that you don't want to do anything that's illegal, of course,
right.
But there are things that can be done that a financial advisor will be able to steer you in the right direction on. So let's talk about veterans benefits. What are the VA benefits out there?
So for those that have served, first, thank you. And with that, they deserve to be able to be taken care of. And that's a really big thing that I like to encourage anybody that has the opportunity to get veterans benefits, that again, talking to an elder law attorney, that's again where Elder Life can come in and kind of guide people on the best way to do it, going to the VA specifically as well. But there are not only benefits for the resident themselves, but there are spousal benefits, and so not just for the veteran but also for the spouse.
Okay.
Even after the veteran may have passed, there are spousal benefits that are available. It is a specified amount, and it does require finding out again what other assets there are. There are a certain amount that you can have, but it goes towards supportive living. So in an independent environment, it would require that there's some kind of support coming in before any of that aid and attendance will be paid. But it is possible. It just depends on what those services are.
Yeah.
But then in an assisted living or memory care, it's a much easier thing because they know they're in a community, they're in an environment that is receiving the support with those different activities of daily living. So it tends to be a bit smoother. I will tell you though that if things are not filled out exactly, there is considerable delay. So again, going to an expert on those is very
and
helpful.
that does require documentation from your doctor,
does.
right? And then of course, and typically the senior living community that you may be looking at can help you with those, finding the right forms and things like that. You know, as confusing as it is, I looked up what it is called, the VA plan. So this is it is known as, the VA benefits for senior living or assisted living are known as non-service connected improved pension benefit with aid and attendance. Say that 5 times fast. Can you remember?
I'm not going to try.
So a lot of people, so they call it aid and attendance benefit, but that's, non-service connected improved pension benefit with aid and attendance. It just rolls right off the tongue.
Sure.
It is something that's based on income, right? And so I did pull some other statistics. You must have served, or your spouse must have served, at least 90 days on active duty, or at least 1 day during wartime. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then of course there's the medical qualifications and things like that. Talk to an advisor.
Yes.
To help you. That's the big piece. So anything else? Did we miss anything on our list? That was kind of a big list.
It was a big list. I feel that it was pretty comprehensive. But of course, if there are any extra questions, if anybody has any, be happy to help answer those. But calling to talk to an advisor, a senior advisor, is always beneficial. Again, financial advisors use them. They're experts. I recommend using their expertise. Elder law attorneys, and you can always find the ones that are in your area. So it's good to, you can go online. There are, I know each state, Georgia actually has a specific Georgia attorneys, and then it breaks it down for elder law attorneys in the area, and you can look those up specifically. But of course, any community can help to guide you to who they partner with. And so finding any experts that partner with communities is a good thing too, because then you have a personal connection to know that they've benefited somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a big list. The others that didn't quite make the list are win the lottery, or go to the other end of a rainbow and look for the pot of gold. Those. It might work for you, but those they didn't quite make our list today. But so we covered a lot of conventional ways to pay for senior living, along with some the not so conventional ones like the life insurance. Hopefully this list has been helpful for you and has given you some things to think about. That's what we want to do today. So where do you go from here? Well, as Brooke was just saying, I would recommend that you talk to 2 people. The first is the senior care counselor or the sales advisor, or whatever they're called, at the community or the communities of your choice. If they're good at their job, like Brooke is, then they're more interested in helping you as an individual than they are in making a sale, and they will be there to help you. But here's the thing: they deal in this stuff every single day. I mean, Brooke deals with this every single day, and so people like her know about what works and what doesn't work. They know what's available in your state. And they know what the person who was in a very similar situation as you went through yesterday, because they were helping somebody else yesterday. And they can also help you determine the actual cost that you can expect to pay, so that you know exactly what your financial commitment is. I mean, you got to know how much it's going to cost you in the community that you're going to be in. The second person that I think you should talk about is your financial advisor or your accountant. Brooke was just talking about that. Someone who you can trust and who you can partner with in figuring out how to pay for this and getting you on track to living the life that you want to live. Or if you're already living the life that you want to live, keeping you on that track, because you never know when things might change in the future. So those are the 2 people that I would talk to as you're thinking through all of this. They should be on your team and help you navigate this. And as we said, we were kind of joking a little bit earlier, of course, talk to your family about it, but, they don't unless your family is an elder law attorney
Right.
or a financial advisor or something, you probably do want to get the experts into this, because these are very important topics, right?
They are. And they can see a lot more than typically family can just at a glance. And they'll have insight to things that the average person doesn't, who isn't in that area of expertise.
Yeah. And this may seem really daunting, right? But it is not hard for these people,
Right.
for the financial advisors and things. So don't let that, make you afraid of actually going and making that step to talk to them. I think that's a big piece. So if you want to get information about some of the things that we talked about today, we do have a really great blog post article on our website that outlines many of these things, and it actually links to other resources on the internet just within that post. We've got a link down in the comments I see below, and I see Lemoyne has said great information, so happy that you're watching there. We can also send you a link through Facebook Messenger to that blog post if you just type the word blog, B-L-O-G, in the comments below, and I'll send you a link through Facebook Messenger. It's just an easy way for you to keep track of that without having to keep track of this link. Now, our next show of Senior Living Live is going to be Friday, March 9th at 11 a.m. So that's next Friday, March 9th at 11 a.m. Eastern. As you might have seen, we've moved the schedule around a bit, but I think we're going to be locked in with that weekly day and time moving forward of Fridays at 11 a.m. So that's Friday, March 9th at 11 a.m. Eastern. If you want to be reminded of that, hey, we're busy people, we can't remember things, I can't, just type the word show in the comments below. It's S-H-O-W, show, and I will send you a reminder through Facebook Messenger. We'll use the power of Facebook to let you know. And you remember, you can always watch past shows at seniorlivinglive.com. That'll take you right to our Facebook page where all of those videos are archived. So Brooke, thank you for coming today. This was fantastic. You had a lot of super information. Any final words for the folks watching at home?
Honestly, just feel free to ask questions. There's never anything that you can ask that would be an off question. I'm big on that, is just let people know what's on your mind, because it may trigger something else that can help you. So don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, thank you, Brooke, and thank you all everyone for watching. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.